Since the death of George Floyd, we have seen millions protest throughout the world, and it's starting to pay off. Across our country, we're witnessing police reforms, including civilian oversight committees, a national database to track police misconduct and racial bias, as well as new training in de-escalation and conflict resolution. There are many ways to change the world for the better. Public protests are just one example. For some people, changing the world starts with a career choice. Think about Abraham Lincoln, who became a lawyer, who went into politics and became our most beloved president. Many of us thought of him on Friday, during the 155th anniversary of Juneteenth, the day that the last slaves in the Confederacy claimed their freedom, some 2.5 years after Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Another way to change the world is through education. Most people can look back at a teacher whose impact is felt to this day. For some, it's a kindergarten teacher who helps them learn to read. For some, it's a choral director who fostered a lifelong love of music. For some, it's a coach who gave them confidence on the field that carried over into confidence off the field. The teacher who made the biggest impact on my life was Dr. Glenn Stassen, an ethics professor at Southern Seminary who helped me see for the first time that my faith not only affects my personal life, but also has larger implications for social change and the future of our planet. In one of his classes, we read Dr. Martin Luther King's book, Why We Can't Wait. Thanks to Dr. Stassen, I decided to pursue a graduate degree in social ethics, which brought me to Boston University and eventually to the Congregational Church of Manhasset. Dr. Stassen was one of my mentors at a crucial time in my life. I love the story of the relationship between James Earl Jones and his high school English teacher. Jones was born in Arkabutla, Mississippi in 1931 and lived there for 5 years before joining his maternal grandparents in Michigan. In a recent interview, Jones said, "Every time someone congratulates me on my voice, I quickly remind them of what a terrible stutterer I am. To this very day, although I can control it now, except when I'm angry or feeling particularly anxious." Jones recalls the first time he stuttered, saying, "I'll never forget it. I was 12 years old and I was living on a farm with my family. It was the middle of winter in Michigan, and my uncle had a seizure. I'd never seen anything like it, and it terrified me. I didn't know what to do. My grandmother said, 'Strap on your snowshoes, go to the nearest road, and find someone to help you get a doctor.' I finally found the store and the phone, but I couldn't speak. All I could do was stutter. My uncle's life was in my hands, and I couldn't speak." That was the beginning. After that traumatic experience, Jones did not speak for the next 8 years. Jones attended a small agricultural high school where he met the person who would change his life, Donald Crouch, a high school English teacher. Before teaching high school, Crouch was a college professor who worked with the likes of Robert Frost. Crouch retired to a farm in Michigan. He began teaching high school when he learned that the nearby school was understaffed. As Jones tells it, Professor Crouch knew, quote, "I had a hard time speaking and felt self-conscious. He discovered that I wrote poetry a secret I was not anxious to divulge, being a typical high school boy. After learning this, he questioned me about why, if I loved words so much, couldn't I say them out loud? One day I showed him a poem I had written, and he responded to it by saying that if it was really a poem I had done, I should be able to stand up and recite it by heart in front of the whole class. I did as he asked, and I got through it without stuttering. And from then on, I had to write more and speak more. This had a tremendous effect on me, and my confidence grew as I learned to express myself comfortably out loud. On the last day of school, we had our final class outside on the lawn, and Professor Crouch presented me with a gift, a copy of Ralph Waldo Emerson's Self-Reliance. This was invaluable to me because it summed up what he had taught me, self-reliance. He is the reason I became an actor. On this Father's Day, let's take a few moments to think about our mentors, those important people in our lives whose positive influence helped make us who we are today. Fathers, mothers, grandparents, teachers, coaches, band directors, scout leaders, employers, neighbors, and yes, once in a blue moon, even ministers have the honor of being a positive influence on someone. In the New Testament, there's a wonderful mentoring relationship between the Apostle Paul and his spiritual son, Timothy. Paul recognized Timothy's potential, and the mentoring began. Timothy was a diamond in the rough. According to various scriptures, Timothy was timid, nervous, anxious, prone to illness, and considered too young for the job. Nevertheless, Paul saw something in Timothy that others missed. The apostle took the young man under his wing, and eventually, Timothy became Paul's right-hand man, accompanying the apostle on dangerous journeys and being sent off to do difficult errands. Paul once wrote to the church in Philippi saying, "I have no one like Timothy who will be genuinely concerned for your welfare. Timothy's worth you know, who, like a son and with I the Father, he has served with me in the work of the gospel." When Paul got in trouble, he wanted Timothy nearby for help. During his first imprisonment in Rome, Paul sent for Timothy. And later, when Paul faced death, he wrote from his Roman cell, asking Timothy to come before winter. We don't know if Timothy made it to Rome before Paul's execution, but without a doubt, he tried. There are many ways to change a life and thus change the world. Donald Crouch saw potential in James Earl Jones, the man with the voice. Which brings us back around to Juneteenth and Black Lives Matter. Jones was achieving his initial taste of fame as the civil rights movement was going through some of its most violent times. And some felt that Jones should have taken a more active role in promoting the cause. Jones says, "I'm sure a lot of people thought I was chicken or shirking my responsibility. Don't get me wrong," he says. "I believe in the same things that all those people are demonstrating, and believe me, when I look at them, I am with them. But I look for plays or movies that say the same thing, and I play those characters in them." Throughout his career, James Earl Jones has broken many color barriers and opened the doors for actors of color who have come after him. He was inspired then, and he has inspired people through his 7-decade career, winning 3 Tony Awards, a Grammy Award, 2 Emmy Awards, and an honorary Academy Award, among many others. Not too bad for a kid from Arkabutla, Mississippi, who worked as a janitor in New York until he made it in acting. And then he changed the world. Amen.